I'm Roy Krebs, founder of Natural Stacks, and today we have Dr. Thomas from Natreon. Hi, Anthony. How's it going?
Hey, Roy. Pleasure to be speaking with you today.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks for coming on. So today, just wanted to talk about ashwagandha. It's a really hot ingredient, and I think people just need to know what is it and how does it work. So I wanted to get into that a little bit on this video.
Sounds good. Yes.
Yes. So first, who are you and who do you work for? And yeah, how'd you get into this type of stuff?
Sure. Yeah. Well, my name is Dr. Anthony Thomas, and I'm a nutrition scientist, and I work for Natreon. I'm their director of scientific affairs, and they are a Carey company, so big food, beverage, and taste company. And we deliver functional ingredients to both dietary supplement companies and food and beverage manufacturers to bring added value to their customers and support and promote their health.
Awesome. Yeah, Natreon is, I know they're super keen with their science studies, as many studies as you can ask for. So yeah, we're happy to be working with Natreon. So yeah, ashwagandha, it's kind of getting more press. You hear about it more. It's an adaptogen, like, what is ashwagandha?
Sure. Yeah. Well, let me take a quick step back and just give a little bit more context about Natreon. Natreon, as a manufacturer and developer of functional ingredients, really draws its inspiration from Ayurveda. And this is the traditional holistic healing system that originated on the Indian subcontinent thousands of years ago and is still widely practiced to this day. But as with many traditional remedies and therapies, they really lacked systematic evaluation to guide what we now call evidence-based medicine or healthcare, right? So it was more experience-based at the time, and Natreon really wanted to investigate various ingredients derived from some of the most popular Ayurvedic botanicals and evaluate them with clinical studies, look at what doses are effective to really marry, I would say, traditional experience-based therapies with modern day science and to help guide evidence-based health applications for those ingredients. And that brings me to ashwagandha, because ashwagandha is the flagship herb of Ayurveda. It was often referred to as the queen of Ayurveda. And you mentioned adaptogen. It was often referred to as the king of adaptogens. And simply put, an adaptogen is a non-toxic substance that helps the body's ability to resist the negative effects of both mental and physical stress on the body, which can be quite pervasive. And so in that sense, it really does have broad therapeutic potential. And that therapeutic potential is thought to be derived from the various phytochemical constituents present in various different parts of the plant, be it the roots, which have been used the most extensively traditionally, followed by the leaves, the fruits, the seeds, the stems. I mean, all parts of the plants contain these phytochemical constituents that mediate their biological effects and therefore their health promoting effects in the body.
So yeah, backing up, like Ayurvedic and Chinese medicine, they have all these herbs that I think are just now, getting studied by Western medicine to really understand how they work in the brain and what they do. So yeah, it's an exciting time to be studying this stuff. So thousands of years ago, would they just dig up the roots and make a tea out of it, or what?
Yeah, I've actually read they've often would dry the roots and grind them up and use them in various oral applications. Okay. And so it was traditionally used as what they called a rasayana, or rejuvenator, which was used to promote longevity, vitality, and just general well-being. And as I mentioned, as an adaptogen, it's thought to have broad therapeutic potential, and largely in part through reducing those negative effects of stress on the body. And again, stress tends to touch every body system and can have many negative effects if that stress is not resolved. And really, you can't eliminate stress from life, right? It's inherent in life. So we really want to support our body's ability to adapt to those stressors and really limit the negative effects that stress can have both physically and mentally on our bodies.
So is this working mostly on cortisol, or is there a different mechanism there?
Yeah, so ashwagandha more broadly and sensoril ashwagandha extract specifically is thought to be functioning as an adaptogen, working in part through what they call the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal, or HPA for short, axis. And so during an acute stress response, the body produces signals that evokes secretion of cortisol, which is often referred to as the stress hormone, as well as adrenaline and noradrenaline. And this impacts various physiologic functions throughout the body. And think, if faced with an existential threat, this acute stress response is more commonly referred to as the fight or flight response, right? And so the body wants to prioritize physiologic functions to either, face that threat head on or run away from it, right? And so to do so, it increases things like your heart and respiratory and metabolic rates. It increases energy availability in the body. So it wants to increase sugar in the blood so that it can get to working muscles and facilitate responses, right? But it's going to deprioritize other body systems and functions, say digestive functions, reproductive functions, because these aren't really particularly relevant for dealing with the immediate threat on hand.
Stress is massive need right now. People, a lot of people are stressed out. I'm stressed out. Everyone on a daily basis experiences this in some way. So yeah, being able to control that with tools like this that are natural, that is super powerful. So you mentioned that Sensoril, the type of ashwagandha that you guys provide, utilizes different plant parts. And I guess, what's the reasoning behind that, and how does that work?
Sure. So I would say the vast majority of ashwagandha derived ingredients on the market are simple root powders. And those extracts that do exist are generally derived only from the roots. And again, this might be more reflective of traditional applications. But remember, I said Natreon is a science company, and they want to look at marrying traditional experience-based applications with modern day scientific approaches and what we understand. And so, like I mentioned, all parts of the plant bear medicinal value as a source of these phytochemical constituents. And it turns out modern evidence has highlighted the leaves as the richest source of these secondary metabolites that mediate the health promoting effects of the plant. And so, as one of the richest sources, what we've done is Sensoril Ashwagandha is a unique, patented, solvent-free, so it's a 100% water extract derived from both equal parts of roots and aerial parts, i.e. leaves, from ashwagandha. And then they put these parts together. We believe this provides a truly holistic ashwagandha ingredient to optimize those stress resilient properties that we want it to exhibit for our customers.
Yeah, awesome. And I'm glad it is hot water extracted. Some of these herbs are benzene and methanol and these crazy extractants. So yeah, we've always looked for the cleanest ingredients, of course. So how long does it take to start working, and what might you feel?
Sure. And so, I really want to caution the listeners. I think some people will see the term ashwagandha and see that it might support relaxation and have calming effects, but really don't. I would caution against thinking of it as like an acute sedative ingredient. It's not something that I think you're going to take and you just immediately feel calmness start to come over the body. Again, the way Sensoril Ashwagandha is likely working is via reducing those negative effects of stress on the body. And to see the full benefit, you'd have to do regular daily intake. And I would say probably you should be noticing effects within 2 to 4 weeks. Anecdotally, I personally had felt effects within about 3 to 4 weeks of using it myself. But in our research, and specifically that research looking at reducing regular stress and associated symptoms in people that regularly experience stress, our first time point was 1 month, so 4 weeks. And we did see significant improvements at that time point. And we are invested in ongoing research. And we're going to look at a 2-week time point and see, hey, do these benefits manifest even earlier? Because just because we didn't look doesn't mean the benefit doesn't exist. But I don't want to overpromise and suggest, these benefits will manifest acutely in most people. I think there's going to be individual variability, as there is with many therapies, but generally speaking, as far as the stress reducing and associated symptoms, the evidence suggests about 4 weeks.
Yes, I mean, I have felt it on the first dose, but I know that it does compound, right? It's like you take it on a regular basis and it becomes more beneficial.
That's right. Yeah. And so that initial study that I'm referring to was actually an 8-week or 2-month study. And certainly, while we saw significant benefits at that first month time point, we saw enhanced benefits at the later 2-month time point. So it would continue to improve until you reach a good steady state level.
Awesome. Yeah, and the negative effects of stress, it takes a while to get to work with that, right? And to get a continuously lower amount of cortisol and to make sure that these downward effects are controlled.
Exactly, right. You think about how signaling works in the body, and it's not as if the signal occurs and the response is immediate. Sometimes it's regulating expression of genes, which will take time to translate into proteins, and those proteins having biological effects. And so, again, these responses are often coordinated, and they touch on many body systems. And so, that's amazing that you've felt benefits acutely, and I'm sure that's also related to the dose, because we do have some studies at higher doses showing effects within 2 weeks on certain outcomes. But again, I think there's going to be individual variability, and regular intake is likely going to manifest in the most therapeutic results for use of the ingredient, in my view.
Great. So I have a question. How is ashwagandha different from other adaptogenic herbs like rhodiola?
Right. And so, I mean, there's a number of herbs out there referred to generally as adaptogens, and all adaptogens being addressing the stress response and mitigating the negative effects of stress on the body. Again, the differences likely are related to the various phytochemical constituents. And again, it's not any one constituent. I know I look a lot online, and certainly something called withanolides, as well as their derivatives. So some of these molecules are modified with other chemical modifications or have sugar moieties attached. We refer to these as withanolide glycosides. And that's common in plants, but these withanolides are more or less specific to withania species like ashwagandha. And so they've received a lot of attention. However, I'm seeing a lot of evidence that suggests extracts that don't pull out lots of withanolides, such as aqueous extracts, because these are fat-soluble compounds, still exhibit many biological effects. And unlike, say, a pharmaceutical, which is an isolated compound often studied, these botanicals are complex, diverse mixtures of biologically active chemicals. And it's likely the sum of these chemicals that are in play with any unique botanical. And so ashwagandha may be working through some systems in the body that some of these other adaptogens aren't, even if they're both playing on, say, the HPA axis. Again, I've seen evidence for ashwagandha with regard to cognitive effects, supporting what they call cholinergic signaling in the central nervous system, which is more stimulatory, but also supporting what they call GABAergic signaling. And GABA is the main inhibitory neurotransmitter produced by the body. And so sometimes if you have excess stimulation without that break, it can lead to problems with cognitive abilities. And so I'm not suggesting that all of these are in play, but without knowing for sure, each of these botanicals are unique in their chemical constituents. And it's those chemical constituents that mediate the biological effects. And so those there are constituents that are going to be not only unique to ashwagandha, but also unique to sensoril as a specific extract derived from ashwagandha. And so no other ashwagandha derived ingredient on the market will reflect the composition of sensoril, and vice versa as well.
Right. Awesome. Yeah, a ton of information here. Thank you. Is there any other studies or something interesting to hint on about ashwagandha or sensoril
Well, sure. And, you know, I like to highlight the effectiveness of Sensoril, I think is really highlighted in what is the lowest clinically substantiated dose for any ashwagandha ingredient on the market. So with only 125 milligrams per day of Sensoril ashwagandha extract, we see significant reductions in stress, both subjective measures as well as objective, such as reducing fasting cortisol levels. And no other ashwagandha ingredient, even if they've shown cortisol reducing and stress reducing benefits, has been shown at that low of a dose. And so for me, a clinical result like that is where the rubber meets the road and is a reflection of potency, not the presence of any one particular biologically active constituent. I see that advertised on other products with marketing, and yet those products often either don't have research, you know what I mean, or haven't shown benefits in these same areas. So it's almost a distraction for consumers in my mind. But that aside, there's many interesting things going on with ashwagandha, and we actually recently completed a study in postmenopausal women. And often in postmenopausal women, they'll look at things like bone health, which we certainly did look at, but people forget about the psychological component and the various mental stressors that come with the menopause transition. And we did see, without divulging too much because that research is not yet published, significant benefits on the mental health and well-being of postmenopausal women. So you could see, like, in various different populations, these benefits might manifest in different ways. And so again, you wouldn't necessarily think of ashwagandha as having bone health benefits, but in this study, we certainly saw that as you age, you tend to lose bone, particularly with the menopause transition and in postmenopausal women. And we saw that process slowed significantly, so blunted with regular Sensoril supplementation. And so it's interesting things like this, and we're looking in various areas. And we currently actually have a planned sleep study too. So just for context, whenever anyone's been really stressed, they probably had poor sleep or had trouble sleeping. And this is not a mistake, because from an evolutionary perspective, sleep is not a priority when you're faced with an existential threat. So if cortisol levels are too high, generally the processes to promote sleep in the body are being antagonized. And so we're looking at direct benefits on sleep. We're going to look at various sleep stages, the quality of sleep, with regular supplementation of Sensoril. So we're looking in a number of different areas. But again, they're all in some way related to stress and the negative effects that stress has on these body systems. And so we know stress can diminish immune function, right? So maybe future research looking at how Sensoril ashwagandha supports immune function and health, because that's obviously a major concern for consumers right now. And I'm sure many people may just anecdotally know that, say they're really stressed, sometimes they get indigestion or some stomach upset, you know, and look at, again, remember digestion, not one of the more important bodily functions in the face of an existential threat, you know. But in modern society, it's not usually an existential threat. It's job stress, it's stress about our personal health, our relationships, that are leading to the same biological response that, say, our ancestors may have faced when they came in contact with a saber-toothed tiger, right? And so it's almost as if the stress response has gone awry in our modern context. And by reducing these negative effects of stress, we can see it manifest potentially in various health benefits. And so areas, again, that we're looking at is generally related to cognitive health. So the ability to focus, have attention, and perform well under pressure. And sleep is another major area that we want to invest in research, because we know that many Americans are suffering from sleep loss. And again, I already highlighted the prominence of stress in our society. So we think that these things are all linked, and certainly the evidence would suggest they are. And so we want to investigate Sensoril in these various areas for direct health promoting benefits.
Yeah, it's just amazing how all the bodily and brain functions are interconnected and interweaved, and how they can affect each other and vice versa. So it's almost endless, right?
So yeah, very complicated, because I always remind people that everything in your biology is connected in some way. And so you're never going to target and affect one, system without in some way affecting other body functions or systems in some respect. And so it's why we're doing more and more research in these areas, and there's plenty to learn and know, but certainly the current evidence suggests a high level of safety. Sensoril Ashwagandha was the first branded ashwagandha ingredient introduced into the US market back in 2004, so nearly 2 decades ago, and we've had no reports of safety issues or use, and that's through millions of doses used annually. So it has a very well-established track record of safe use, but also we have full suite of safety studies supporting its use. And with more and more clinical research, we're looking to explore more of its therapeutic potential in these various outcome areas.
Awesome. Well, yeah, it's amazing that we have Sensoril Ashwagandha as a tool, like all these ingredients are tools for specific situations, specific people. And yeah, that's kind of how I see supplements in general are like, tools on your tool belt, and please use them when you need them. And they're there, they're available, they're natural. No safety concerns. So it's just like we have these tools available. It's our job just to educate people that, hey, they are available, you can use them, and they work.
Right.
Yeah, that's what's rewarding for me, and it's fun to be in this industry for sure.
I 100% agree, Roy, and that like these are supplements, and they're not a crutch for a poor diet and lifestyle, but they're supplemental to your diet and lifestyle. And we know that there's gaps that exist, and we can preach perfection, but I always like to say, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. And I certainly wouldn't get adequate exposure to ashwagandha in my diet naturally, right, without supplementation. And really, I always like to promote too that people consider supplementation such as ashwagandha as a prophylactic or preventative approach, rather than waiting till there's a problem, like they have adrenal fatigue because they've been chronically stressed and suffering from sleep loss. Certainly that would be an impetus to go explore. And again, individual responses will likely vary. But as you suggest, there's a high level of safety associated with its use. And again, that's going to be individual and context specific based on their own health status. But we do see that it has broad therapeutic potential, and that if people use these things regularly, it may discourage negative things from happening in the future. So I always like to take a preventative approach with health. I equate our health to like operating a car. You can get regularly scheduled maintenance, change the oil, keep it running relatively smooth. And of course, there's going to be wear and tear on the car over time, but it should run well. Whereas if you wait till the engine breaks down and gets fixed, well, yeah, it will start running again, but other systems that are worn will eventually wear down too. And it's kind of like you're addressing these things individually versus that preventative approach of just regular maintenance and trying to prevent it from breaking down in the first place.
Totally. Well, thanks, Dr. Thomas. This was awesome. I learned a ton. So yeah, I really appreciate it.
Oh, well, I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you, Roy, and I look forward to future opportunities too. I want to spread the good word, because ultimately I think we both really just want to help people with their health, and so that they can live the fullest lives possible.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Oh, pleasure.